Welcome everyone to the next in the series of the Digital Social Care Masterclasses. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes to let everybody join, and then we'll get underway. Welcome to everyone who's just joined. Hopefully you're in the right webinar. We're just going to give it another minute or two, just letting everybody join. But this is the next webinar in the Digital Social Care Records Masterclass. This is on what is a data protection officer and what do I need one. So we're just going to give it another minute or two. Okay, I think we have all our attendees now. So welcome everyone. This is the next webinar in the Digital Social Care Records Masterclass series. This is on what is a data protection officer and do I need one? So can I just remind people that we have a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen where you can ask questions, and we'll be able to ask those questions to our panelists later in this session. If we can't answer something, we will try and get an answer for you, and we'll get that sent out in the materials we produce after this recording. I should also state that we are recording this session, and it'll be available on the Digital Social Care website in the next couple of days. Can we have the next slide? Thank you. So this is the agenda we're going to be running through today. Unfortunately, I don't have my co-host with me, Nad, for today, but I'm Nathan Jones. I'm the Senior Policy Research and Projects Officer at the National Care Forum. Shelley Wimbridge will be giving us an overview of the Data Protection Officer role and why do we need one, and then we'll just follow through the agenda as it follows, including a bit of information about digital social care from Katie Thorne and Claire Sutton as well. So let's just get a little bit of background about what digital social care is. So NHSX has partnered with digital social care to support the care sector with adopting digital social care records, and these are sometimes called electronic care planning or care management software. The aim is to ensure that these meet the needs of care providers and have met a minimum level of standards and functionality. So to help with this, NHSX has created an assured suppliers list, which is hosted on the Digital Social Care website. And we are currently co-producing guidance and these masterclasses for the sector to go alongside this. Claire will go into a little bit more detail about what this looks like at the end of the session. The reason for focusing on digital social care records is that they support safe, appropriate sharing of information across care settings and ensure that the right information is available to the right people at the right time. So this session should build on that and give us more detail on that. Kind of the next slide. Thank you. So there's just a little overview of what digital social care is. You can see our website at the bottom there, www.digitalsocialcare.co.uk. And it's essentially a partnership between members of the Care Provider Alliance and is funded by the NHS. It's created by social care providers for social care providers, and it's a dedicated space for all the information that you might need in terms of technology and transformation in your organization. So do check that out. It's very useful, has some information about latest guidance and in terms of how you go about the process of adopting new types of technology. And then I think we are ready to get stuck into our first session. So can I invite Shelley Bainbridge to come and talk to us about the Data Protection Officer role and give us an introduction. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan. Okay, hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shelley Bainbridge. I am a Data Protection Officer. I work for the company Trust Care Management Limited, also Focus Care Supported Living. We are a two company under one umbrella, and I have been a qualified Data Protection Officer for almost 12 months now. So I was asked from the National Care Association if I would like to prepare a masterclass for SMEs to talk about, do we need a DPO? Is it something that we need? It's quite a huge responsibility and lots of questions come from this. So I've put together a presentation to hopefully support people in making those questions and answer it for themselves as a organisation that you all are. So the objectives over the next 40 minutes will be, what is a data protection officer? What is a DPO? What does a DPO do? How do I know if my business requires a DPO? How do you go about appointing one? How compliant are you as a company? Accountability framework, what is this? Where can I get it from and how do I get started? Accountability and governance, and then leadership and oversight. So they're the sort of areas that I'm going to cover in this presentation. So what is a data protection officer? So the UK GDPR introduces a duty for you to appoint a data protection officer, which I'll talk through today as a DPO. If you're a public authority or body, or if you carry out certain types of processing activities. So DPOs assist you to monitor internal compliance, inform and advise on your data protection obligations, provide advice regarding data protection impact assessments, which might be known as DPIAs, and act as a contact point for data subjects and the Information Commissioner's Office, so the ICO. So ICO is CQC for the same process for data protection and GDPR like we have with our care sector and CQC. The DPO must be independent, an expert in data protection, adequately resourced, and report to the highest management level within that organisation. DPO can be an existing employee or it can be an external appointed person. In some cases, several organisations can appoint a single DPO between them. DPOs can help you demonstrate compliance and are part of the enhanced focus on your accountability. So what professional qualities should a DPO have? Well, the UK GDPR says that you should appoint a DPO on the basis of their professional qualities and in particular experience and expert knowledge of a data protection law. It doesn't specify the precise credentials they are expected to have, but it does say that this could be proportionate to the type of processing you carry out, taking into consideration the level of protection the personal data requires. I've got 23 years experience in the health and social care sector. I've been a regional manager, a registered manager for many years. So my understanding of specialised categories data is very good. So therefore I met the credentials to become a data protection officer for my industry. So where the processing of personal data is particularly complex or risky, the knowledge and abilities of the DPA should be correspondingly advanced enough to provide effective oversight. It would be an advantage for your DPA to also have a good knowledge of your industry or sector, as well as your data protection needs and processing activities. So there's many articles obviously within the GDPR law, and this is about breaking it down to a digestible level for us to understand a bit better. There's many articles within the legislation, but the DPO tasks are defined in Article 39. And the tasks for the DPO talk about to inform and advise you and your employees about your obligations to comply with the UK GDPR and other data protection laws, to monitor compliance with the UK GDPR and other data protection laws, and with your data protection policies, including managing internal data protection activities, raising awareness of data protection issues, and training your staff and conducting internal audits, making sure that a DPO overviews the policies and procedures, also can sit in your board meetings to talk about governance and making sure when new changes happen or new projects come involved, are we carrying out a DPIA and are we carrying out risk assessments to make sure that we're in line with GDPR laws. So what are the tasks of the DPO? Well, carrying on to say to advise on and to monitor data protection impact assessments, to also cooperate with the ICO. So again, they're like our CQC, and to be the best point of contact for the ICO and for individuals whose data is processed, and that will be our employees and all customers. It's important to remember that the DPO's tasks cover all personal data processing activities and not just those that require their appointment under Article 37(1). When carrying out their tasks, the DPO is required to take into account the risk associated with the processing you are undertaking. They must have regard to the nature, scope, context, and purpose of the processing that you're carrying out. So what are the tasks of the DPO? So this continues to say that the DPO should prioritise and focus on the more risky activities, for example, where special category data is being processed or when the potential impact on individuals could be damaging. Therefore, DPO should provide a risk-based advice to your organisation. If you decide not to follow the advice given by your DPO, you should document your reasons to help demonstrate your accountability. So can we assign other tasks to a DPO, or is it a sole job within your organisation? Sorry guys, the UK GDPR says that you can assign further tasks and duties, so long as they don't result in a conflict of interest with the DPO's primary tasks. You can see whether your organisation needs a DPO by completing a quick 5-minute quiz to answer to help you make that decision. On the ICO website link, you can go on there and you answer several questions, and it will automatically tell you whether you are requiring to have a DPO or not. So does your organisation's core activities involve processing on a large scale, special categories or personal data or criminal convictions or offences data? When I carried out my DPO training, I was with other students who were actually the DPO for Virgin internationally, and they were processing lots and lots of high volume of data. So yes, naturally they're going to need a DPO. I was sat there quite worried and thinking, am I needed? I don't understand, but absolutely. We in the health and social care sector, we process special categories data. So by special categories, we mean personal data revealing their racial or ethnic origin, political opinions, religious or philosophical beliefs, trade union membership, processing of genetic data, biometric data for the purpose of uniquely identifying an actual person, and data concerning health or data about a person's sex life or sexual orientation. So within the health and social care sector, we would sit under requiring a DPO. So appointing a DPO, we are a public authority or body and have appointed a DPO. We are not a public authority or body, but we know whether the nature of our processing activities requires the appointment of a DPO. We have appointed a DPO based on their professional qualities and expert knowledge of data protection law and practices. Or the final choice of appointing a DPO would be we aren't required to appoint one under the UK GDPR, but we have decided to so voluntary. We understand that the same duties and responsibilities apply had we been required to appoint a DPO. We support our DPO to the same standards. Under the health and social care sector, we are not a public authority or body, but we know whether the nature of our processing activities requires the appointment of a DPO. This is one we would sit under because of the special categories that we data process. So position of the DPO in your organisation. Our DPO reports directly to our highest level of management and is given the required independence to perform their tasks. We involve our DPO in a timely manner in all issues relating to the protection of personal data. Our DPO is sufficiently well-resourced to be able to perform their tasks. We do not penalise the DPO for performing their duties. And we ensure that any of the tasks or duties we assign to our DPO do not result in a conflict of interest with their role as a data protection officer. So that's the position a DPO would sit within your organisation. And all of this information I have found on the ICO website. Tasks of the DPO in your organisation. Our DPO is tasked with monitoring compliance with the UK GDPR and other data protection laws, our data protection policies, awareness raising, training and audits. We will take account of our DPO's advice and the information they provide on our data protection obligations. When carrying out a DPIA, we seek the advice of our DPO, who also monitors the process. So again, any projects that you do with new data and new systems, you must seek advice from a DPO to ensure that everything has been accounted for and that you are completing accountability and all risks are mitigated. Our DPO acts as a contact point for the ICO. They cooperate with the ICO, including during prior consultations under Article 36, and will consult with any of the matter. When performing their tasks, our DPO has due regard to the risk associated with processing operations and takes into account the nature, scope, context and purpose of processing. These have been repeated and these are the same areas that we look at as a DPO and making sure that everything that we're doing, we're protecting our organisation, we're protecting data and making sure that we're always compliant with GDPR. So accessibility of the DPO. So our DPO is easily accessible as a point of contact for our employees, individuals, and of course we represent the ICO for our organisation. We have published the contact details of the DPO and communicated them to the ICO. We do this on our website. We make sure it's in our policies and procedures, on our privacy statement and policies. So can the DPO be an existing employee? Yes. So as long as the professional duties of the employee are compatible with the duties of the DPO and do not lead to a conflict of interest, you can appoint an existing employee as your DPO, rather than you having to create a new post. Can we contract out of the role of the DPO? You can contract the role out of a DPO externally based on a service contract with an individual or an organisation. It's important to be aware that an externally appointed DPO should have the same position, tasks and duties as if they were an internal appointed one. Can we share a DPO with other organisations? This might be something that people think of, or people might think, actually, I'm quite a small business. This is something I could look at with my neighbouring company that we work well with, and we can actually share a DPO together. You may appoint a single DPO to act for a group of companies or public authorities. If your DPO covers several organisations, they must still be able to perform their own tasks, and it must be effectively done, taking into account the structure and the size of those organisations. This means you should consider if one DPO can realistically cover a large or complex collection of organisations. You need to ensure they have the necessary resources to carry out their role and be supported with a team if this is appropriate. Can we share a DPO with other organisations? So your DPO must be easily accessible, so their contact details should be readily available to your employees, to the ICO, and again, people whose personal data you will process. Can we have more than one DPO? So the UK GDPR clearly provides that an organisation must appoint a single DPO to carry out the tasks required in Article 39, but this doesn't prevent it appointing other data protection specialists as part of a team to help support that DPO. You need to determine the best way to set up your organisation's DPO function and whether this necessitates a data protection team. However, there must be an individual designated to the DPO for the purpose of the UK GDPR who meets the requirements set out in Articles 37 and 39, and all this is around your reporting, making sure that there is that clear contact to ICO for any breaches, for any reporting, and making sure that audits and accountability is clearly defined within that team. So can we have more than one DPO again? So if you have a team, and you should clearly set out the roles and responsibilities of its members and how it relates to the DPO. If you hire data protection specialists other than a DPO, it's important that they are not referred to as your DPO, which is a specific role with particular requirements under the UK GDPR. So again, just to reiterate that, you can have a team of people. You can have people that are classed as data protection specialists or data analysis, whatever you feel that fits your service properly to meet your needs and your terminology is fine. But a DPO must be a singular person that can then be the streamline between service, breaches, data, accountability, and then into the ICO. So there's a streamline from a DPO to ICO. What do we have to do to support the DPO? So as an organisation, what do you have to do? So you must ensure that the DPO is involved closely and in a timely manner in all data protection matters. The DPO reports to the highest management level of your organisation, i.e. the board level. The DPO operates independently and is not dismissed or penalised for performing their tasks. You give the DPO appropriate access to personal data and processing activities. You give the DPO appropriate access to other services within your organisation so that they can receive essential support, input, or information. And you seek the advice of your DPO when carrying out a data protection impact assessment, and you record the details of your DPO as part of your records of processing activities. So what details do we have to publish about the DPO? So this shows the importance of the DPO to your organisation and that you must provide sufficient support so they can carry out their role independently. Part of this is the requirement for your DPO to report to the highest level of management. This doesn't mean the DPO has to be line managed at this level, but they must have direct access to give advice to senior managers who are making decisions about personal data processing. Minutes of the DPO being involved in your meetings will also be good governance and making sure that you are accountable and compliant. What do we have to do to support the DPO? So again, the UK GDPR requires you to publish the contact details of your DPO and provide them to the ICO. This is to enable individuals, your employees and the ICO to contact them as needed. You aren't required to include the name of the DPO when publishing their contact details, but you can choose to provide this if you think it's necessary or helpful. You're also required to provide your DPO's contact details in the following circumstances. So when consulting the ICO under Article 36 about a data protection impact assessment, and when providing privacy information to individuals under Articles 13 and 14. And however, remember, you do have to provide your DPO's name if you report a personal data breach to the ICO and to those individuals affected by it, because the ICO will require to have that communication back and forth with that DPO within your organisation. So is the DPO responsible for compliance? The DPO isn't personally liable for data protection compliance. As the controller or processor, it remains your responsibility to comply with the UK GDPR. Nevertheless, the DPO clearly plays a crucial role in helping you to fulfil your organisation's data protection obligations. So accountability and governance, there are two key elements here. So the number one is first the accountability principle. Make it clear that you are responsible for complying with the GDPR. And second, you must be able to demonstrate your compliance. And again, it's a very large area that all of us, I'm not a specialist, yes, I'm a qualified DPO, I learn every day, and ICO website really helps me get a real good feel and gives me the right toolkits to be able to support my organisation to the best of my ability. So what is accountability? So accountability is one of the data protection principles, and it makes you responsible for complying with the UK GDPR and says that you must be able to demonstrate your compliance. You need to put in place appropriate technical and organisational measures to meet the requirements of accountability. There are a number of measures that you can, and in some cases must, take, and these are including adopting and implementing data protection policies, taking a data protection by design and default approach, putting written contracts in place with organisations that process personal data on your behalf, maintaining documentation of your processing activities, implementing appropriate security measures, recording and, where necessary, reporting personal data breaches, carrying out data protection impact assessments for uses of personal data that are likely to result in high risk to individuals' interests, appointing a data protection officer, and adhering to the relevant codes of conduct and signing up to the certification scheme. So how compliant are you, and what is the accountability framework? I found personally, when I became a DPO, it was a minefield and I didn't know where to start. Yes, we ticked data protection legislation. Yes, we had some GDPR processes in place, but it was quite cloudy, and becoming a DPO meant all of a sudden I've now got this responsibility to make sure as an organisation we're really compliant. And what does that mean to me? I understand CQC, key line of inquiries compliance, I understand my local authorities compliance, but what's all this about GDPR? So I found on the website accountability framework, and I found it really, really helpful for my organisation. So the ICO have created an accountability framework, okay? The framework is an opportunity for you to assess your organisation's accountability. Depending on your circumstances, you may use it in a different way. And so there's some examples here you may want to use. So it can create a comprehensive privacy management programme. It can check your existing practices against the ICO's expectations. Consider whether you could improve existing practices and perhaps in a specific area. Understand ways to demonstrate compliance. Record, track and report on progress, or increase senior management engagement and privacy awareness across your organisation. One of the key factors from ICO is that they don't expect anyone to be 100% perfect. It's ever growing, ever changing, and your compliance won't always be 100%. What this accountability framework does is enables you to demonstrate very quickly where you are compliant. And as long as you're demonstrating each month, you can progress and you show where you have improved, and they walked in to do an audit and inspect you, they would be happy with that as long as you've got this accountability framework in place, it's being used, and you can measure and evidence against it to say this is where we're non-compliant and this is what we've done to improve it. Something as simple as making sure that every job description within your organisation has GDPR responsibilities and that there is a DPO job description. That ticks about 6 different areas of compliance within this framework that they've developed. So it's quite easy to read. It links into all of the different legal articles for you. It does the job. So I'm a real believer in this accountability framework. So the frameworks, it's divided into 10 categories. And so one of them is called leadership and oversight. So selecting a category, it will display ICO key expectations and then give you a bullet pointed list of ways you can meet their expectations. So it's given you the legislation, it's given you the law required, and then it's also given you your examples of what you can do to achieve that compliance. So these are the most likely ways to meet ICO's expectations, but they are not exhaustive, of course. You may meet their expectations in slightly different or unique ways that suit your business. So you can demonstrate the ways you are meeting ICO expectations with this document. But accountability is also about what you actually do in practice. So you should also review how effective the measures are. By doing audits, by doing surveys, you'll be able to collate whether the information you're training and giving out to your organisation is actually effective. So for the accountability framework, one of the tabs is leadership and oversight, and the areas that they ask you to consider are your organisational structure, whether to appoint a DPO. So that's where you can go onto the ICO website, complete that 5-minute quiz on do I need one? And from there, that should be your starting point of your journey if you have not yet made a decision on whether you require a DPO or not. There's an appropriate reporting documents, policies, toolkits in there for you. Operational roles, what do we do operationally? Group to provide oversight and direction. Operational group meetings. Transparency, another accountability framework tab, you should be considering your privacy notice content. Is it in line with ICO and GDPR? Timely privacy information, effective privacy information, automated decision making and profiling, staff awareness of GDPR, how to report breaches. It's very important that we get that feedback from staff and what their awareness looks like. Privacy information reviews, full supporting transparency and control. Records and management and security is another section in the framework, and areas that you need to consider will be creating and locating and retrieving your records. What does that look like? How does that feel? Have we gone from paper to paperless? What does that mean? Do we have to do a DPIA? What are the risks? What factors have we implemented? Are we using an external IT system? Have we had their GDPR policies and procedures checked? Again, it's all of these questions start coming in as a DPO once you start completing this accountability framework. I won't go through them all. Information asset register, again, very important. Unauthorized access, secure areas, business continuity, disaster recovery and backups. Do you have action plans for that? What do you do in your contingency plan if something goes wrong? What do we do if? What happens then? These are the things that you need to have in place to protect your business. Individual rights, again, they're very important. So again, some of the areas it will ask you to go through and assess will be informing individuals and identifying requests. So access, subject access requests, resources, logging and tracking requests, timely responses, monitoring and evaluating performance, etc. Erasure, very important. Restriction, data portability, rights relating to automated decision making and profiling. All these words sound quite unnatural or something that you may not have necessarily be used to, but once you start going through the GDPR regularly, ICO, these are all the terminologies that sit within all the legislation, and they've broken it down to make sure that we meet all of the articles and the recitals, making sure that we're legally competent. Contracts and data sharing. So we've got data sharing policies and procedures, and it goes through which policies you are required to have in place, which policies need to cross-reference over to your GDPR processes. Restricted transfers, processes, controller processor contract requirements, third-party products and services. Do you use a third party for any of your products and services? And what safeguards are in place for that? Purpose limitation. Records of processing on lawful basis, you need to consider data mapping, records of process activities, which we know as ROPA within the GDPR world. Good practice for ROPA, documenting your lawful basis transparency, consent requirements, reviewing consent, risk-based age checks and parental guardian consent. Very important if we're supporting people with a learning disability that may have guardian consent. How do we manage that? How do we protect people around that? And legitimate interest assessment, which is also known as an LIA. The training and awareness. So again, you need to be within this accountability framework looking at, are all staff trained properly? Induction and refresher training, specialised roles, monitoring and awareness raising. What does that look like? And there's a great little posters and project on ICO that actually allows you to do an awareness campaign, and you can download all of their posters, and it tells you step by step on what you can do to make GDPR more aware and making sure people aren't having data breaches, and if there is one, what to do about it. We then go on to breach response and monitoring. So again, following on from the training, you should be seeing an increase in data breaches. So then you can see that your training and awareness has been correct and worked, and then it's about managing that back down to no breaches. They're detecting, managing and recording incidents of breaches, assessing and reporting the breaches, notifying individuals and how to do that, because there is a legal timely manner, again, that we need to be responding for any breaches. Reviewing and monitoring external audit or compliance checks, internal audit programs. What does that look like for your organisation? Performance and compliance information, use of management information. So assistive tools. So to help you assess, report and improve your data protection compliance, you can complete the ICO's accountability self-assessment. You can also use ICO's accountability tracker if you want to record more detail and create an action plan to track your progress over time. So accountability and governance, the accountability obligations are ongoing, like I said earlier. You must review and where necessary update measures you put into place. If you implement a privacy management framework, this can help you embed your accountability measures and create culture of privacy across your organisation. Being accountable can help you to build trust within individuals and may help you mitigate enforcement action. So accountability is not a tick box exercise. Being responsible for compliance with the UK GDPR means that you need to be proactive and organised about your approach to the data protection. While demonstrating your compliance means that you must be able to evidence the steps you take to comply. And I do really believe the accountability framework does do that. To achieve this, if you are a small organisation, you will most likely benefit from a smaller scale approach to accountability. Amongst other things, you should ensure a good level of understanding and awareness of data protection amongst your staff. Implement comprehensive but proportionate policies and procedures for handling personal data and keep records of what you do and why you do them. So Article 24.1 of the UK GDPR says that you must implement technical and organisational measures to ensure and demonstrate compliance with the UK GDPR. The measures should be risk-based and proportionate, and you need to review and update the measures as necessary. So leadership and oversight. So why is this important? So a fundamental building block of accountability is strong leadership and oversight. This includes making sure that staff have clear responsibilities for data protection related activities at a strategic and operational level. Some organisations legally require a DPO, but everyone must allocate sufficient resources and make sure that the data protection is shared responsibility, rather than solely the task of someone working directly in a data protection role. You make senior management and the board accountable, and they must lead by example to promote the organised, proactive and positive approach to data protection that underpins everything else. So the organisational structure, so ways to meet the ICO's expectations. So the board or the highest senior management level has overall responsibility for data protection and information governance. Decision makers lead by example and promote a proactive, positive culture of data protection compliance. You have clear reporting lines and information flows between relevant groups, such as from a management board to an audit committee, or from an executive team to an information governance steering group. Policies clearly set out the organisational structure for managing data protection and information governance. You are required an organisational structure that talks about and encourages and educates your organisation around how we support and manage and protect data protection. Job descriptions clearly set out responsibilities and reporting lines to management. And job descriptions are up to date, fit for purpose, and they are reviewed regularly. And data protection and information governance staff understand the organisational structure and their responsibilities. Have you considered the effectiveness of your accountability measures? Do staff report that your organisational structure is effective? Is there a positive and proactive culture of data protection compliance across your organisation? Are staff aware of their responsibilities and those of others within the structure? I'll leave that on for a moment, just for you as your own organisation to think about. Can you answer those comfortably, reassuringly, that actually, yeah, we have got it in hand. We know exactly what we're doing. Our team do know what to do regarding data breaches, regarding data protection, and we understand exactly how it sits. If not, if you're questioning these, then maybe it's something that you need to look at further for and seek further advice and support, because it's something that we do need within our organisation. So whether to appoint a DPO, so ways to meet the ICO's expectations. So the DPO has specific responsibilities in line with Article 39 of the UK GDPR for data protection compliance, data protection policies, awareness raising, training and audits. The DPO has expert knowledge of data protection law and practices. The DPO has the authority, support and resources to do their job effectively. If your organisation is not required to appoint a DPO, you record the decision and why. If your organisation is not required to appoint a DPO, you appropriately assign responsibility for data protection compliance, and you have enough staff and resources to manage your obligations under data protection law. So appropriate reporting. So ways to meet ICO's expectations. Again, staff know who the DPO is, what their role is, and how to contact them. All data protection issues involve the DPO in a timely manner. Your organisation follows the DPO's advice and takes account of their knowledge about data protection obligations. The DPO performs their tasks independently without any conflict of interest and does not take any direct operational decisions about the manner and purposes of processing personal data within your organisation. The DPO directly advises senior decision makers and raises concerns with the highest management level. The DPO provides senior management with regular updates about data protection compliance. So the DPO is independent and unbiased. They must report to the highest management level and staff must be clear about how to contact them. It's somebody that needs to sit alone within that job role, not within the work life, but it's somebody needs to meet that criteria that it is very clear that they have an obligation as a qualified data protection officer. If I see breaches, I will be reporting to the ICO. And previously it said that, again, as a data protection officer, you cannot be penalised for making those decisions. If your senior management team don't agree with what you're doing, and as a qualified DPO, you see that they aren't following your advice, and again, that is something that could potentially become a reportable matter under ICO. So really, again, is for you guys to go away and think about, is a DPO required for your organisation? Well, thank you for your time. I think that's me done. I'm going to pass you back over to the team. Thank you.
Many thanks, Shelley. That was very comprehensive, and I hope everybody's got lots of questions from that. Before we jump into a little bit of Q&A with the panel, we're going to hear from Katie Thorne first, and she'll take us through the resources and support available from Digital Social Care. So over to you, Katie.
Thanks very much, Nathan, and thanks, Shelley. That was really comprehensive. I just wanted to quickly touch on some of the guidance and support we have available at Digital Social Care. As I'm sure you picked up from Shelley's presentation, this is a really, really large topic area, so I wanted to reassure everybody lots of support is available. So first things first, and this has been picked up in the chat and the Q&A a couple of times. A lot of you have noticed that one of the rules for whether you need to have a data protection officer is if you do large-scale processing of special category data. Shelley has been very clear about what special category data is, and that as care providers, we obviously process that sort of data. It's the large-scale bit which causes some confusion. So we have produced formal guidance, which you've had HSX, the ICO and CQC, about whether you categorize as a large scale organization. Generally, we would say if you're a large care organization, so potentially that could be somebody who's multi-site, you've got sort of specific staff in IT, HR and estate sort of roles, you would need a data protection officer. If you're a really small care provider, a single care home with very few members of staff, very few residents, it's unlikely you would need to have a data protection officer because you don't classify as large scale. Though, as Shelley says, you would need to record you don't need one. We provide template wording for what you can put into your policies on Digital Social Care around this. We do, however, recommend very, very strongly that there is still somebody who champions data protection within your organisation. They don't need to have as many specialist skills as a formal data protection officer. They shouldn't be called to that role because that's a specific legal role. But it's still really important. You still have to meet the obligations to the ICO as a regulator, so you should still have somebody who's responsible. If you want to read our full guidance on this, there's a link here. These slides will be circulated and you can take a look. And Skills for Care have also developed a job description, which goes into some of the specific requirements, which might be helpful for you as well. And this is some of the other support that we have. So we suggest that small care providers have somebody called a data security and protection lead. You might also call this person information governance lead or a data protection champion. Skills for Care and the Institute of Public Care at Oxford Brookes University have recently created this 1-hour training webinar about what that role could look like. That's freely available on our website for you to watch if you'd like more information. And we've also covered, well, Shelley's covered some of the different policies, procedures, the different documentation you need to prove your transparency and accountability under GDPR. We've produced templates of a lot of these, which are specifically for social care providers. They're all free to download, they're all editable, and they're all available on our website. This is just a small selection of them. There are significantly more. And also, finally, I would also like to point out for anyone on call not available, NHS Digital do have the Data Security and Protection Toolkit, which is a free online self-assessment you can use to check your data security, your data protection in your organisations. And that can be a really helpful tool as well for you to use to sort of look at your organisations, sort of whether you're there with GDPR. Anyway, that was it for me, just very briefly. I'll hand back to you then, Nathan.
Thank you very much, Katie. So we're now going to move into some Q&A. I can see there's been a few questions which can raise, but I just want to see, I think my co-host Nadra has rejoined us. So Nadra, are you able to unmute and put your video on and introduce yourself, and then we can run through some of the Q&A.
My system's not working very well, Nathan, I'm afraid.
That's no worries at all.
I'm
Nadra,
trying really hard. I'm trying really hard. So
we can hear you if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then we can run to Q&A.
I'm the Exec Chair of National Care Association, obviously co-hosting this with National Care Forum. So my apologies for being in and out, but I've caught glimpses of what was going on. But I'm here if you need me, Nathan, but I'll let you take the lead on it.
That's no worries. Thank you, Nadra. And Claire, I know you're speaking a little bit. Would you like to introduce yourself too?
Hi, I'm Claire Sutton. I'm a registered nurse and one of the digital transformation leads at the National Care Forum. I'm also a member of the digital social care team, so work quite closely with Katie and other colleagues as well to support care providers from not just our own membership, but across the sector, to make the right decisions really around going digital and make them be informed decisions.
Thank you, Claire. So I'll start off with a question for Shelley, and once again, thank you for that comprehensive presentation. But I was just wondering if you could give us maybe an example of what you do day to day as a DPO. What is the usual for you in the sort of roles that you do?
Yeah, so I do hold a dual role because obviously we're still classed as a small organisation, so we're not at a huge national level. So I'm a regional operational director, and I sit with the DPO role. So my role is around the training and learning and making this as less scary as I possibly can for us guys in my sector. I've worked in the sector 23 years, and it's all about education for me. And we've gone digital, like the world is going in 2021. And it's the fear of, well, what if that data gets shared? What happens if, so it's about making sure that all our policies are easy to follow for a start, and that there's clear processes, and that if there is a data breach, what do we do about it? So it's all about regular meetings. We've now got a steer group where our actual employees run it, about governance in all, and we've actually added data protection into that. So again, for me, it's all about education, making sure that we hold all the right accountability. So each month as well, I update that accountability framework that I talked about. So last February, I think we were sat at 38% compliant. And month on month, we kept going through it. We chipped away. We made sure that educating people, updating policies and job descriptions really captured a lot, and we now sit at 91% compliant. and it's and that's reassuring for me, because I refer to Article 39, Article 14. I don't recall all of these. It's a huge area for me, but to have those toolkits for people on the ground that do the work every day is important to me. I also carry out audits across the whole company. So I'll go through, and we've created a GDPR audit. We've also created data breach audits. We've also created sharing access and information and how people actually talk on the phone, when we're dealing with people that can consent or not consent. When does that open up to different people, lasting power of attorneys, etc., and making sure that everybody is in line. And obviously the other areas around the NHS, local authorities and CCGs, we share specialised information, so we're both responsible, and it's making sure that we are compliant with them and that we're compliant with ICO. So it's huge, but at the same time we break it down into small digestive chunks to manage. Otherwise I wouldn't sleep at night.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that's a lot of work there, but it seems like you're on top of it. So sort of two related questions to that, and I'm afraid they're coming thick and fast for you, Shelley. So
yeah, I will try and answer what I can.
Give you on the hot seat for a little bit longer. So two sort of related questions. One is like, what training course for DPOs would you recommend? And then how did you go about getting qualified as a DPO?
I was dragged by my teeth to do this. This wasn't something that I first thought I would be doing, but once I started the training, it was brilliant. I researched it myself for a start, and I found two companies that I worked with. Let me just get their information up. So one of the companies, and they are actually advised, so if you go onto ICO, they actually give you recommendations on which companies they would suit you to comply with. It varies between £500 and £2,500 to be qualified, and it did take me over a week to go through the qualification, and it was a 5-hour exam. It was pretty intense. There are other DPO qualifications out there which are not as intense. I will get that information. I can't think of the actual company that I went through, but I will get that information and share that with you if that's okay, Katie. Yeah,
perfect. We can I'm sure we can include that in all the resources that go out at the end. Just a few more sort of related questions.
Yeah.
I think for anyone else who might want to jump in as well, please do jump in on the panel. But sort of related to what Katie was talking about when answering about large organizations, we also had a question about what about small organizations where people have to wear multiple hats just because they're quite small. What if we have, say, a director who's a registered manager? Can they also be the DPO? And are there any exemptions or people who can't be a DPO that you might give some steer on? Shelley or Katie? Yeah. Yes, sorry, yes.
So for me, number one, don't be afraid of ICO. Call them, ask them the question, because the problem you've got is that we're all very bespoke and individual and unique. So yeah, I'm an operational director, but I write a lot of the policies. I get involved with a lot of the governance side. So it was a very natural process for me to become a DPO. But it's about you to call ICO. They are so friendly and they are so helpful, and they will give you the answers that you have. So that my advice would be contact them, because they will be able to guide you the right way. They would get out of that. I do apologise, but yeah, I have called them and they're helpful.
I would echo what Shelley says. ICO are incredibly helpful. They are really clear that they want to be a really supportive regulator in this, and they are really not interested as well in being punitive, particularly to smaller organisations. Generally, I just sort of reiterate what Shelley said earlier in her presentation about making sure people don't have a conflict of interest, really, in terms of being a data protection officer. Data protection officer is meant to be putting an individual's data and their privacy first all of the time. So if you're in a role which means that you're maybe purchasing like a new software system, which it might be cheaper to have one which doesn't have as good like privacy, that might put you in a conflict. Check with the ICO, obviously, but that's sort of the kind of conflicts they're talking about, where you might have to put something ahead of an individual's specific rights.
Yeah.
thank you. Just couldn't quite unmute there. And then the last question I've got here sort of builds on that. There's a question about, can you, and I think this is more to Shelley, could you describe an approach or a model of a DPO for a single care home with, for example, 20 beds and the registered manager who's obviously wearing a number of hats in that scenario? I think it probably builds on some of what you've already said.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I'm sure my slides are going to be shared with everything for you. But for the smaller organisations that you do wear even more hats than companies that have got more support, is that you possibly might need to be the DPO. If it's not a qualified DPO, like Katie said, it might be a data protection ambassador. But for me, of all the training and all the policies I've written and been told to read by all the organisations I've worked for over the last 10 years, or since especially May 2018, when is ICO is your friend. So go through, I would definitely go through those 5 questions on the web link that I shared on my presentation. It literally, there's 5 questions and it will talk about you. How many services do you provide? Do you deal with special categories? So again, where I put the red box on that slide, that's the answer you would give. And then it will give you a couple of more extra questions. And then it will say, you do require a DPO or you don't require a DPO. So if you do, then there are lots of different qualifications out there you can get at different prices. The outcome's the outcome. Everybody uses the same commissioner. So don't be phased out if it's a bit cheaper, because the more expensive doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best. And if you don't have to be a qualified DPO, then obviously Katie has explained that maybe you become an ambassador. And I'm more than happy to share my email and be someone that people can just bounce off ideas, especially if you're isolated on your own and you want somebody to talk to. Feel free to take my contact details and I'm happy to speak to anybody after this.
Fantastic, thanks Shelley, and I assume we can send those details out with the resources at the end. Yeah, perfect.
Certainly.
Just before we move on, just sort of 2 more questions. One is, and again, Shelley, this is for you. Has your organisation completed the DSPT?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we're compliant. Yeah, so like I said, we're Trust Care and we're Focus Care. So they're 2 separate companies under the same umbrella. So we have a DPO that sits on both companies. So I have a second DPO, but because we're 2 separate companies within one, that's how we can have 2 DPOs. And his specialism, which I'm lucky for, is around the governance and the documentation side. So I know different associations. I also sit on the local care board, Care Association Board for Staffordshire, and we've actually had lots of workshops on how to complete those DST and how to get the best out of them. And again, speak to your local CCGs and your local authorities, and they will guide you and help you in completing those. But yes, we are fully compliant on both of our companies.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Shelley. So just before we move on to Claire's segment, Claire, Katie, Nadra, do you have anything else you'd like to add to this? Any thoughts, reflections on what you've heard? Useful tips if you have them as well, is always good.
I would just really echo what both Shelley and Katie have said about the ICO is not to be feared. They are really, really open to having those conversations. They want to have those conversations. You have a duty of candor as care provider in the same way that you do with every other aspect of your delivery of care, to contact people and let people know when things have happened. And the ICO are about the least likely to beat you with a stick than any of the other regulators, really. They are great people to have those conversations with. Things happen all the time, and they are absolutely there for you to go to and ask those questions of.
So can you hear me at all?
Yes, perfect, Nadra.
Yeah. Thank goodness. So I do apologise. I'm having technical difficulties today, but I didn't hear all of Shelley's presentation, but having seen the slides before, I knew. I just want to thank you for making it sound as though it was, well, it's nothing to be feared. I think that's a really important message, that that we need to get across, and that there are ways of getting into it. And I think it's really important to also reinforce that there are different levels that you can get into it, so you don't have to fear doing an exam at the end of it, because it's acceptable at different levels, and bring yourself up to the level that you want to. So for smaller providers, obviously the ones that we represent, the encouragement is to actually move through the pathways to get to where you want to be. I mean, just a question to you, Shelley, is that having been through it all, and were you initially a little bit nervy about it, or
I was petrified. No, I was absolutely petrified. I was told I was going to become the DPO because the skills matched. And I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't understand it. And I'm the first one to be fearful as soon as I'm come across something new. But I'm also the loudest, and I'm always the one in a big group going, I don't understand, help me. So I suppose that's why my characteristics and my skills sat well with this, because I question a lot. But I was so nervous because there's law, and then there's law, and this was huge. But once I started to break it down and understand it better, it became second nature. Yeah, so I think the more you do it, the more it becomes easier. But the reason why I'm really focusing on this accountability framework is because that's what helped me understand it better. I've got books and books and books of GDPR training and data protection training, and I'll probably never go back to it, but that's how I learn. But when I sat on the ICO website, my head was blown. But it's really good, because once you start clicking into okay, so what does data breach mean? You click on the data breach in the website, and then it brings you up lots of different areas for you to follow. And then you click that, and then there's a toolkit, and it ever grows, and it's all there. It's all so helpful. But that accountability framework definitely helped me feel empowered, confident, and gave me the reassurance that as a company, we're doing all right. We're not actually as fearful as it sometimes feels. And remember, when you're being trained, they're very specific, aren't they? It's very black and white, and it's very law driven. And reality isn't like that. As long as you're open, transparent, and clear about where you are with your compliance and accountability, you won't go wrong.
I suppose my final comment on this, thank you, because I think it's about bringing it down, isn't it, to really demystifying it in some way. But there is a way to go. So you go through the fear, and then the more knowledge you get, the better you get at it. I think for me, the message out there to everybody listening is it's not going to go away. So at some point you're going to have to grasp the nettle on this one, and do it in a positive way, the way that Shelley's putting out. So thank you very much, Shelley. I think it's been really good. And back to you, Nathan.
Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you, Shelley. Thank you, everyone else, and thank you for the questions. So we're going to finish now with a little segment from Claire, who's going to tell us about what support is available.
Hi, yeah, I'm just going to give you just a really, really brief overview of some of the support that's in place around this programme that we're involved in. So this is the wonderful vision of NHSX, is to ensure that 80% of all CQC registered adult social care providers have access to a digital social care record that can be interoperable with a local shared care record by March 2024, which is now just over 2 years away. So it's creeping up on us pretty quickly, isn't it? So there's been a whole programme of work put into place by the team at NHSX. So next slide, please. We are not just running these masterclasses, of which there is a series of 8 masterclasses, and we're just over the halfway point. This was the 5th one today. There's also a load of other support in place. As Katie has mentioned, there's quite a lot of different guidance already available on the Digital Social Care website, but there's some quite specific new tools and pieces of guidance and templates that are available specifically around buying and implementing a digital social care record. There is an assured supplier list that's currently got 7 digital social care provider records on there. And going alongside that, there will be a decision tree tool and some buyer guidance as well to support care providers to be able to make the right decisions about what the best social care record system is for them and how they go about choosing it, because let's face it, it's a bit of a minefield out there, isn't it? We've also got a helpline that's available either via email or telephone, and that's run 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. You can also contact the team at NHSX directly, and their email is on that slide. Next slide, please, Katie. So as I mentioned, we've got the helpline 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. That's our telephone number and our email address. There's always somebody there, and we're always happy to have that conversation with you. So if you've got questions around not just the care records, but around things like DSPT and data protection officers and various different, anything digital and social care related, we're always happy to have a chat with you. If we don't know the answer, we'll go away and find it and come back to you. There's loads of different guides on there. There's video ones, there's text ones, there's the recordings of all of these masterclasses for you. So you don't have to be sort of taking lots of notes or anything like that when you come along. The resources are all available afterwards. Always really happy to share success stories. So any care providers out there that do have any success stories around any kind of digital project or implementation that you've done, please do come to us and share them, because we want to show the rest of the sector what's possible. And sometimes you can feel very alone in a very big space out there, especially over the past couple of years, but there's been so many fantastic things that have been done, and we're really keen to be sharing those. When funding becomes available, which does sporadically, we will always make people aware of that. And what I would suggest is, if you're not already signed up to our newsletter, go onto the website, scroll right down to the bottom, you can sign up. We will always put any funding opportunities into that newsletter. You won't get bombarded, it's only once a fortnight. We operate a special interest group as well, and we get lots of care providers involved in various different projects, such as inviting Shelley along to come and speak to you today. Next slide, please, Katie. So as I mentioned, we've still got 3 more masterclasses available. That link on that slide, which, as I say, will be sent out for you, doesn't just take you to the website to register for the next 3. You can also access the recordings for the ones that have passed. So you can go back and listen to those if you weren't able to come along. The next one that we've got coming up at towards the end of February is about embedding tech in the workflow. So there's been a whole range of these masterclasses, all covering different topics, but together they hopefully will provide yourselves as care providers, and those supporting care providers as well, with lots of tools to be able to support people to make those decisions and make the educated decisions. And I think, is that it, Katie? Yeah, fantastic. So if anyone's got any more questions, we've got a little bit of time left over at the end. If not, you can get time back.
Yeah, so I will, before we hold for a few questions, just say that once you leave this call, you'll get a little email link with the survey for feedback. I would really appreciate if you give some feedback on the session. The recording itself will go live on the Digital Social Care website in the next couple of days, and that link I've posted in the chat earlier tells you where you'll be able to find that, and the slides will be available after the session. So unless anyone has any further questions, and please speak now if you do, I'll give it 10 seconds. And of course, if you do have questions that come off the back of this, do get in touch with us and we'll do our best to answer them. But I'm going to assume there are no more questions, in which case just thank all of you for coming, for giving us your time and listening to everything that I guess we've said and all your questions. And I just thank you to the panelists, Shelley particularly, for producing that very comprehensive overview. Very much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Yeah, have a good day all. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.